These are excerpts from an online survey where 60 people were surveyed about the consequences of the pandemic on their mental health. When posed a question, has the COVID 19 pandemic affected you negatively in any way? 75% of responses said yes. When asked if the quarantine had negatively impacted their mental state, 78% replied yes. This corroborates strongly with other surveys taken during the quarantine. This demonstrates the scale of the mental health crisis due to the pandemic. The mental impact of the virus does not discriminate. Stress has shown only a small correlation with the local severity of the pandemic. A study found that people with high stress during the pandemic weren't more likely to live in the federal states of Germany that had reported the most COVID cases. This means that no matter where you live, the pandemic can affect your mental health. Due to the online nature of our survey, we got responses from all around the globe. A majority of the responses came from the US and India, countries hit particularly hard by the virus. Our sample was also skewed toward younger people, students. This allowed us to gain insight into some of the most affected and yet somewhat ignored groups of the COVID crisis.
Though the effects of the pandemic can affect anyone anywhere, they aren't entirely impartial. Some groups are affected worse than others, like overworked healthcare workers at high risk of getting infected and faced with ever longer hours, penniless service workers running on depleted savings, students unable to cope with heavy workloads, and small business owners forced to declare bankruptcy. Young workers, especially, have been hit the hardest, and unemployment plagues every nation hit hard by the pandemic.
Additionally, in the era of social media, where people oceans apart can communicate instantaneously, loneliness and depression are at all time highs. As social pressures rapidly accelerate, more and more people report feelings of isolation and hopelessness. Social media, while being the greatest blessing of our generation, is also the worst evil. These feelings have only been exacerbated by the quarantine.
Out of the responses we collected, an overwhelming majority cited social interaction as a key factor in improving their mental states.
Studies have shown that anyone looking for real, intimate, nourishing social exchanges, conversations among 4 to 6 worked better. The average conversations between two people, it was found, also averaged about 30 minutes.
Conversations between families largely excluded teens and young adults. At that age, when as humans, we are more primed to form new connections and not just celebrate and forge existing connections within our limited circles. Considering all of this and coming up with an innovative solution seems hard. Something that anyone can access, is easy to set up and use, and gives a substitute for the social interaction so many people desperately need.
The COVID lockdown saw the unprecedented growth of a new app, Zoom. A safe way to conduct business online in the absence of traditional offices, Zoom conquered the world, being used for social gatherings, casual chats, and world leader meets. Why not create an easy to use tech platform that will provide an easy go to outlet for the exclusive purpose of socialization? Zoom showed us that not only is that possible, but surprisingly in extreme demand during the quarantine.
That's what For Social is. For Social is an online socialization service that will provide a large number of socializing pods, with four, that magic number for effective conversations, places. People sign on as volunteers and seekers. To sign on, people need to create a profile with information not to identify who they are in the world, but rather what they are, in the simple terms of their likes and dislikes. Profiling people would be a great way of matching up people with non conflicting interests, making conversation easy. There would be a maximum of 2 vols and 2 seeks to a pod. The conversation would last for a preset 30 minutes, and a new post would open up every half hour, with perhaps a give take minute window for late entrants. This means people could easily slot one of these socialization pods into their schedules.
A user need not always be Seek. They have the option to take a small initiation to become a Vol. A user enters for social as a Seek or a Vol only based on their own estimation of themselves. Tips on enabling good conversation, listening, and empathy are given. Do's and don'ts bulleted for easy ingestion. At the end of 30 minutes, the service would log them out, but all the four users could have the option of pledging to renew the conversation in 24 hours. Friendship forming, enabled in measured doses, so as not to overwhelm people with the dopaminergic high to the detriment of their daily lives. For us animals hardwired to socialize, we humans have tended to our needs quite poorly. We prospered as social groups, and it is estimated that social bonding predates pair bonding by about 35 million years, which evolved as a natural step up from social bonding. It has been studied that oxytocin, the love hormone, and dopamine, the pleasure or reward chemical, are secreted during social interactions. More recent research shows an even more complex interplay of brain neurochemicals, serotonin, and endorphins, in addition to downline and oxytocin, all contributing to the feelings of happiness being involved during social interactions. Studies even correlate social interaction with living longer.
The modern technological era has the curious paradox of people having the most since all of human history in terms of food, wealth, health, knowledge, and technology, but missing happiness from being increasingly isolated. Depression and anxiety have become modern era endemics. The COVID 19 pandemic, which called for social distancing as a method of combating the disease, has made this problem more acute than ever. With For Social, we propose not only a solution to the present crisis of lockdown blues, but the long term crisis of perpetual loneliness and inadequate social interaction so many suffer from due to the products of the digital age.